slightly more serious list of book recommendations. Books that helped me in moments of dealing with grief and loss and things like that. And the cat's here to help us. Anyhow, so I've just got 5 on my list. Could be a longer list, but keeping it pretty short. First one, and not in order of importance, just first one that came to mind. If Women Rose Rooted, a life-changing journey to authenticity and belonging by Sharon Blackie. Blackie spelled I-E. Excuse me. I've read several books by this author, and she's got a new one coming out soon, and I've pre-ordered that. I really like everything that she writes. Well, everything that I've read so far, anyhow. And some people call it ecofeminism. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't really even know if I understand what that means entirely. She does. I agree with the feminist part. And the natural world is very important, and the connection to the natural world is very important in what she has to say. So if that's what they mean by ecofeminism, then okay, sure. What does that have to do with grief and loss? I would say read the book, and that'll give you an idea. Second one on the list, more obvious perhaps, the connection. Title is Dark Nights of the Soul, a guide to finding your way through life's ordeals, by Thomas More with 2 O's. Very different approach than Sharon Blackie's book, but I found it equally impactful and recommend it. And then the next 3, I think of them as sort of a pack, or like they go together in some way, even though it is 2 different authors, but it happens to be a wife and husband team. 2 of the books they wrote individually, and then 1 book was a joint collaboration. But I feel like all 3 of the works resonate and deal with, to me, in the same way, and they deal with very similar themes, and in fact there's even overlapping anecdotes in all 3. So I don't remember the order in which they were published, so I'm going to start with the first title, Waking Up to the Dark, the Black Madonna's Gospel for an Age of Extinction and Collapse by Clark Strand. Clark with no E, Strand with no E. I suppose that sounds sort of dark as a title, but I found this book to be very uplifting, actually. It's a hopeful book from my perspective. And I'm not Catholic, I'm not Christian, and I don't think it's required to read and enjoy this book, and I don't think it's particularly promoting Christianity or Catholicism, even though the Madonna and the Black Madonna is obviously a central theme. Then connected to that, the next title, The Way of the Rose, the Radical Path of the Divine Feminine Hidden in the Rosary by Clark Strand and his partner Perdita Finn. So again, connected to the Madonna in some ways. There's strange noise in my house, sorry. Again, not necessary to be Catholic or Christian to enjoy this work, I think. Okay, I'm back from investigating that strange noise in my house. Now there's some car outside idling its motor. Hopefully you can't hear that. Anyhow, so the third book in the little group, little collection of books by Clark Strand and Perdita Finn is by Perdita Finn only, called Take Back the Magic: Conversations with the Unseen World. All three of these works lean toward the mystical and the numinous, the unworldly, whereas Dark Nights of the Soul might be considered more psychological, and if Women Rose Rooted is perhaps more psychological, it's rooted as well in the mythology and the folklore of the British Isles in particular. So, none of these books I would describe as self-help books. I don't think they give you any practical, quote unquote, practical tips for how to deal with grief and loss and significant change from the usual meaning of practical. I found them incredibly helpful, but perhaps on a deeper level. I don't know how to explain the difference. These are not works that will help you escape from the big feelings and the fear and all of the emotions. In fact, these really lean into all of the emotions that accompany grief and loss and significant change. So if that's not what you need, if that's not what you're looking for, then I would not recommend these books. In fact, these are books to read when you are ready to really lean into that and investigate and go further for whatever reason. So that's my short list. I have more books I could talk about, but short list: If Women Rose Rooted by Sharon Blackie, Dark Nights of the Soul by Thomas More, Waking Up to the Dark by Clark Strand, The Way of the Rose by Perdita Finn and Clark Strand, and finally Take Back the Magic: Conversations with the Unseen World by Perdita Finn. I'd love to hear from any of you if you've heard of these or read any of these books.